Hey guys, what's up? This is Scher talking. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about the upcoming stuff here on Romancing SaGa Universe. There is Battle with Apollo. This is a new event where we get 2 new SS equipments. There is a returning banner that is very interesting for newcomers. May not be the best one for veterans because of some stuff. We have the return of global exclusive Red, one character that was very strong. He was released alongside a future blender when we had a celebration of SaGa Frontier Remastered. So even when comparing to that characters that came from future, Red was still good. Now he's returning. He opens many different strategies. There's also the return of Barthelemy. This is the second time that he's returning, so the third time that you can get this version. Also, Blue. This is bad because Blue was also on the first banner of Red. And there is Hannibal, one very powerful turn 1 pierce damage dealer, and T260G, that's the less interesting of them all, but an okay style either way. So the good thing is that we don't have off banners, since when you have 5 styles in a banner, you always get at least one when you see an SS. But for veterans, if you have all the other styles, chasing only Red is pricey, but may still be worth nonetheless. Red is still one of the best characters in the game. He can solo some content, he can do very good damage for turn 1 that no one else can do. He's like using fast attack in the agility position. It's easy to program, he has single target rotation, and he has AoE rotation. He's a complete character without needing of inheritance. That's why he's so good. But we're not here to talk about this banner. We're actually here to talk about the new banner that has Apollo, the new version of Barthelemy, and Fodder. This banner here is very interesting, but guys, let's talk about something here. I still don't think that this is one of the best banners that we can summon. I will be explaining all these styles, and I'll probably be summoning for this as well, because I see a lot of value on Barthelemy. Apollo and Fodder not so much, but they are good characters above average, and I will be explaining why you should summon them or not. Still your decision, you have to think about what you have if they add something to your box. Okay, let's start with Barthelemy, the one on the left. Okay, this Barthelemy has something very unique to him. We have in the game only 2 SS styles of Barthelemy right now. There is another one in the future, and even another recent in JP, so there is 4 different SS. This is only the second one, and it's a boss specialist or a single target specialist. We'll explain this. As you can see, the status are very similar to the past one. He even has 95 intelligence, just 5 more. When you compare him, he has 13 as a bonus. And when we see the other Barthelemy, let me type here again. The other Barthelemy has 90s. That's pretty close, but has a higher base. So the difference is not that important between the status. But this one has only 1 arrow for intelligence. Usually, when we want to farm intelligence faster, we use the A style of Barthelemy. But it's just 1 more intelligence, barely changes. This one increases it even further. He does not use dexterity usually. You could use some of the hyper skills from this version, the A version, but I don't think you should. Anyone does not need to do that. So he's all about agility and intelligence. And it's interesting that he has 77 on agility, and the past one has only 61. Remember that mages use both agility and intelligence to have a higher accuracy, and it's important to keep getting more agility because bosses have very high evasion rate now. So this only helps with this, and also because he's not a fast attacker by himself. Having higher agility will help with his nuke strategy. He has average will for a mage. Mages have usually more than that. Low endurance like most mages, and average love and good charisma. Yeah, it's good. SCR he does not use, so that's pretty bad. So he's a mage that wants to attack fast, but not as fast as some other options in the game. But there's one good thing, because his nuke has a high priority chance. So in this game there's RNG to decide turn orders, and he will attack more often than not as the first attacker. Well, let's give a look on something here. The first passive already explains why this Barthelemy was designed for boss fights. Phantom is the same thing that you can find on Building and also on Perfector in the Mirage Step version of Assails. 25% chance of negating an enemy attack. When you're farming with the first version of Barthelemy, you don't want to get hit, so it makes no sense to consider this. You want this just to increase your chance of survival in boss fights, or maybe if you want to use him for some other challenges. Very interesting thing. Then we have weak point focus 4 for an increase of 20% when dealing weak damage. This Barthelemy has 2 different elements. He can also get a 3rd by inheritance, so it's good. He will probably be hitting the enemy weaknesses, and when he's not, it's just some very specific scenarios. And then for the 5, we have 20% increase more, but this time at all times. So 20 at all times and 40 when attacking a weak target. The only times that we don't attack weak targets is just when a boss has like a low weaknesses, like only 25, we need 35 to get to show on the screen weak, and that is why it sometimes will not happen with him. So it's interesting to check his older version, the first Barthelemy. He does have a lot of passives as well, and even a little further. As you can see for the 4, that is 15% increase in damage, and Engage 3. Engage gives him 30% increase in damage. That should give him 45, but in all times. No restriction to weakness or nothing else. So when he's attacking the first wave of enemies, and some of them are not weak to his Abaddon hands, it still does good damage. That's why he was so useful when he was launched. Also, he had the highest passives for a mage back in the days. That's why he got so useful even when not hitting all the time for weaknesses. This time you have to hit the weaknesses, and this guy is not a fast attacker. Okay, so we have to understand now his skill set. The first one is called Tiny Trick. Tiny Trick is a single target attack with cheap coast that deals good enough damage. Tiny Trick is also used for his rotation for 2-turn damage. Well, before we discuss a little more about Tiny Trick, let's talk about Flame Magic, second skill that is a debuff skill in global. And this is something that increases his utility, because we don't have many STR debuffers right now that can, well, be reliable. I'll explain someone that is kind of a competition for Barthelemy, but Barthelemy beats, at least in chance, Doll. Doll is a good STR debuffer. Although we usually use evasion strategies right now in the game, there will be some times where we need to debuff STR as well. Doll is the best one right now because she can do that with only 5 EP. She can also heal from this attack called Power Grab, and it's 5 EP instead of 6. Barthelemy uses this with a 6 BP. She uses a lower damage potential, only C, so it does not really help with damage, and she's not exactly a damage dealer as well. So Barthelemy will be doing good damage. The skill itself is strong, and not only that, but his intelligence is higher. He has 95, and let's compare Doll. Doll has 88. So the second skill is very strong by being a double element as well. It's both Heat and Pierce. Pierce is interesting with Heat since there are some characters that can do that as well, like Therese, like Wagner's, but they can do that for AoE. With single target, it's not common. And then we have the last skill called Scatter Explosions, and you guys already know this skill because this is the best nuke for fire damage, and it already exists in the first mage version of Polka. Scatter Explosions was buffed for global for up to 5 hits. In JP, it's always 3 hits, and even with 3 hits is already strong. Wagner's comes very close with his nuke, but Polka and now Barthelemy gets the upper hand because of the chance of increasing the damage. Polka is very powerful up to this day, and if you have him, you have an excuse to skip Barthelemy. Yes, you do, but you can still use them both together. And there is one thing, Polka can only increase damage by 25 with Flame Amp and Fired Up 4, while Barthelemy can increase it by 40 when hitting an enemy that's weak. But there's a catch here. Scatter Explosion is only D power, but it has many hits, so it takes more damage from the weapon that you are using than just the intelligence or passives. Meaning that right now, because Barthelemy does not have a double S weapon, he may outdamage Polka, but not by much. Very small difference between the two. The good thing is that you can use both together in an mainstream formation just fine. They will work well, they will do very insane damage, and some bosses may be cheesed in some nukes, depending on how many hits you get. But if you have Polka, you could technically skip this version of Barthelemy if you want. But Barthelemy is a meta character. You will be training him, especially because of the first version of Abaddon Hands and everything else. You have to use him in some scenarios. He is still useful even to this day, although not as strong as Joe. Joe took the mantle of the best turn 1 attacker for most scenarios, but Barthelemy still works, and you are probably leveling him up with every new event, meaning that you have his status close to cap, and using this version of Barthelemy will be easy. You don't need to train another character. You are just training one for 2 different scenarios, one for AoE farming and one for boss fight. But do you really need if you have Polka? Well, no. Just increase your fire nukes for some specific scenarios. So Scatter Explosions eventually becomes better on this version of Barthelemy when he gets his double S weapon. He does get it, but it's very far in the future. JP got it recently, but maybe Global will offer this weapon soon. I don't know. We will have to wait and to find out. But then right now they will do very similar damage. Very similar damage. So this version of Barthelemy is good because he can negate damage when facing bosses. He can increase damage by very large amount, something that the other version cannot because his passive only lasts 1 turn. Turn 2 onwards, this Barthelemy is kind of weak, and it's only work for farming. Now you have a version of him that can work for boss fights, and also the good thing is that Flame Magic is an STR debuff where we don't have many STR buffers that are reliable in the game. We have also Battle of Bucket Hill Gustav, we have Ren. Ren is someone that people should be using. He's a character that can debuff STR from all targets. But look on his intelligence. It's only 50. Sometimes he will be missing this. My Ren with level 46 was missing the STR debuff many times. He offers a tank sustain, so sometimes it's better to still try to use Ren instead of other STR debuffers, but he will start fading more and more often, something that will not happen to Doll, and it will not happen to Barthelemy. So this Barthelemy has an increased chance of being your party because of debuff and not just Scatter Explosion. If you want to use him as a nuker, Scatter Explosion is the thing, you just cycle between this. If you want to use him for farming in Conquest or some events that has only 2 waves, you can just open with Scatter Explosions and go directly to Tiny Trick because it's 9 plus 4. If you want average damage, you can go Flame Magic twice and then Tiny Trick as the last one. This is his rotation. He can't get something by inheritance, yes, but it does not make all that much sense. You can open with Abaddon Hands if you want, yes, and then go for single target. It also works, but it depends on the farming scenario. Sometimes you may want to use a strong attack on last turn. Also, some people use Genryu with Joe in Anima String formation because they want to use more spellcasters. They can use Joe, Genryu, and this version of Barthelemy. He can open with a fast attack, and then on the last wave, if there are just one enemy, he can use Flame Magic alongside the 6 BP skills of both Genryu and Joe. And that also works, it's something that you have more. Remember that Joe and Genryu also increase flame damage, so it's very nice to have them together. I'm just explaining something that can be done. So Barthelemy is good, yes, you can skip him if you want, if you have this version of Polka, the first mage version of Polka with Scatter Explosions, but both together also work this very nicely. Now it's time to talk about Apollo. Apollo is something very peculiar. I think that Apollo is very nice. He got a buff to his intelligence in global to get him to 100%. Apollo needed because he has some defensive stuff, so he needed a little more offensive. And he is a multi-elemental specialist as well, but not as good as Creator. But he does give himself a bigger sustain, so that means that sometimes you may prefer to use Apollo, but he also uses different elements. He's focused on heat, while Creator is focused on lightning. But remember, they are not fast attackers, they are standard attackers, and you may not use them all the time because of that. They can help complement the damage from other fast attackers, or they can be used with non-fast attackers for standard farming. You have to remember that, it cannot be compared to fast attackers. But Apollo has a very interesting kit because right now you can use him with, increased potential when compared to Creator. Creator kind of needs his second style to be better because it increases his potential by a lot. But Apollo right now does have access to many different things. The thing is the damage good enough to justify using Apollo? It will depend also on your box and if you still need something that he offers. Well, giving a look on the skills here and also the status first. 100% intelligence with 15 bonus is pretty huge. His agility is 76, so a little higher than Creator, but still has bonus. Creator has bonus for will, he has for agility. That's better than the Creator. And he does not use dexterity, he does not use STR, and he's another character that uses martial arts weapon just like Creator. He even gets his own martial arts weapon in his event because it needs intelligence instead of agility. That's pretty nice for Apollo, and you can even use his own weapon with Creator if you want. Other stuff, you have Will with 84% and Endurance with 77%. That's huge, and he's a defensive character, so having high numbers for these two status makes sense. His love is bad because he does not self-heal, but his charisma is on average, so the healing that is directly towards him will be good enough. Okay, so we will have to give a look on his passives, and the first one already kind of spoils what he comes from. He's a defensive mage. Just like we had in the past, Vassalt or Lush, they were defensive mages, he's also defensive mage, but he has a better potential for damage than them. The first one is very important because it increases his own intelligence by medium effect. Medium effect is 15%, and it also gives him a very large defense boost. This defense boost is 30% reduction in damage that goes after him. That's insane because it works every new turn. This is something that some tanks have, and he's just stealing a passive from the tank. Reducing damage with high status means that he can be even used in the front lines. If you are using a full enemy stream formation, you can place him on the front. That will be a very good place to land him. He can even be used as a tank for some specific content, but it's not like he really needs to be used like this, but he offers sustain. And getting more intelligence is super important because of his build. He can also inflict status ailments. Getting 15% will just keep stacking every new turn, although you have to remember that every new turn your buff loses potential. Then after this first passive you have Dire Offense and Defense. This means that when he's not on full HP he gets 2 buffs. So when not on full HP means that you need to take a hit first before this starts functioning. First thing, it increases damage by 15%. Yes, 15%, and damage will be reduced by 20% damage reduction. So it stacks with the first passive, meaning that he reduces damage by 50% when he's not on full HP. And you should not be trying to heal him too much. He does not work that well with some AoE healers like Mirza, because Mirza will heal everyone. Well, kinda making this passive ineffective in this case. But sometimes you don't need Mirza or anything that heals, and he will not be healing too much. Like I said, he is very defensive. It will reduce the stress of your mage. But when are you using Apollo? If you're not using him for farming, he only works very well in boss fights with multiple targets. That's my opinion. He does have single target options, but when you're facing many bosses, you will hardly be on full HP anyway, so he helps you not use many mages for heal, okay? Then there is Fired Up 5, so that increases his damage output by 20%. What do we have here? 20% at all times, 35% when not on full HP, 50% damage reduction when not on full HP, or just 30 at all times. And a buff to his own intelligence every new turn, stacking this, allowing him to inflict status ailments easier. That seems interesting in paper, but just have to understand that something here is just about resistance and not much about damage. He is an okay damage dealer, but not the best one. We'll be talking about this. Going for our skills, we have Masamune. Masamune is a skill that has slash and heat. Very interesting combination since it comes from intelligence, can be used on the intelligence position of Rainbow Rangers. Or you can try to make also an enemy stream formation for slash. It's easy because we have Saber Ray that comes from Sun, magic attackers, and you can use them. It works. I made many strategies with them. It's not like it's easy to use them, it depends on the scenarios. But if you are facing a mage that's weak to slash, inflicting physical damage sometimes may give you more than just using something else. And then this one here, it's a 5 VP skill. It will be upgradable in the future with Amplify that reduces it to 4. Because it's B damage, it's very nice to have this. It's something that you can keep using. B is very close to A. We get to have a look on this right now. Here we have now Roman SaGa opening in its 26 modifier. It's very close to A. A starts with 28. So the power here is very high and you can keep using this, and in the future it just gets upgraded to 4 BP and it will be even better. Okay, so we have a cheap single target attack for boss fights in some farming scenarios. What about AoE? He's more of an AoE specialist. His second skill is called Meteor Swarm and goes for blunt and heat. We already have 3 different elements just by looking on 2 skills. Meteor Swarm is interesting because of the added effect and not just about the damage. The damage is a little lacking here. Meteor Swarm has C power only with 8 PP. The good thing is that you can use this 2 times in a 3-turn cycle. But the damage is not that high, and because it uses blunt and hit, at least it's easy to hit for weaknesses. As you can see, it also inflicts paralyze with a low chance. He was buffered for global, he has a higher intelligence, so 100% with 15 bonus means that he will be landing this paralyze a lot often. He may not beat the medium chance from Wagner's. Wagner's has an inheritance with medium chance, it's amazing. He does have lower intelligence, but medium chance, it's kinda way better than just low chance, even if the difference between the intelligence is not that high. But still very close to Wagner's potential in this regard. And the interesting thing is that Wagner's creator and Apollo, they kinda clash sometimes because of some stuff. Also, Meteor Swarm is not that powerful because of the modifier being only 15. Look here on Masamune and you can already see that Meteor Swarm is not that powerful. And it's the same modifier as Punishing Palm, an attack that was inside the game since the launch. So the damage is kinda lacking here, especially if he's not with his second passive activated. So if you are not here for the paralyze, the damage will be lacking. And then we have Burst Nova attack. This attack here is kinda lacking in my opinion. I wanna explain why. We just got Aunus, and Aunus is slash and heat, and he does have high agility, even higher than Apollo. He has 90s, and then we have 76 here. And he's lacking on his potential because some skills are now useful in turn 1. Some of them may not be A power, they can be sometimes B, but very close to an A. And Apollo is just like standard damage. When you look here, Burst Nova has 29 modifier. That's the same modifier as many skills that we had in the past from characters that are kinda old already. The thing is just about mixing blunt with heat, but do you really need this? I don't know. Turn 2 means that you will not be able to use any other skill after that, so he's only for 1 attack and nothing else if you are using him for farming. So he tries to fix that with inheritance, and that inheritance also brings some other problems with Apollo. Let's go here and check his S style, because we are given his S style in his event. Okay, so the S style is also for AoE. 3 different AoE skills. He has Lightning Flash, that's only lightning. Remember Creator always have 2 elements. Apollo does not. His cheap AoE attacks are Coastier. You see it's 4 BP instead of 3. Creator can keep using his cheap AoE all the time because he never runs out of VP. Apollo will run out of VP and he only brings 1 element, Lightning or Moon. The Lightning attack doesn't have any special effect. The Moon attack does have a chance to inflict poison. It may give you some usage in some specific boss fights or challenges that you can inflict poison. Because he keeps stacking his intelligence, he can inflict paralyze by his second skill, or he can inflict poison with this inheritance. It's an interesting thing, but not that useful much of the time. Poison is usually resistance in boss fights, but in some specific scenarios, it will work, yes. So then we have Conflagration. This skill tries to fix his turn 1 damage, and it's a B-type damage, only heat and AoE. Yeah, let's give a look on the damage potential of this. Here, it's called Flare in GP, I don't know why. It's a 27 modifier against a 29 one with Burst Nova. It really makes me wonder why they did this. It's so close in damage potential, but it can be fired up on turn 1. So because it does not come from his SS style, if you inherit this, you cannot follow up with any AoE. That is a problem that Creator does not have. So, okay, I will inherit Flare. What do I do after that? I have to use Masamune because it's the only thing that he can fire after that. And it's single target, so it will work in some farming scenarios, but not in all of them. So, where do you really use Apollo then? in boss fights with multiple enemies. I think that's the case with him. Then in the future, he does get some other stuff, like this version here is a future style of him that got released in Japan right now. He does get a sheep AoE attack for hit and blunt, very nice. Single target nuke with whipping mass immune. This is slash and hit, and also a way to heal himself and get warded up. So he kind of needs the other inheritance for some other things, like he can keep just using Meteor Dust if you want, but he can also just keep using the other elements, like he can just keep using Inazuma or Tokugiri. Strange name because here it's called Lightning Flash and Toxic Gas. Yeah, that future style of him can just choose whatever he wants to use. This version, not so much. You can kind of overwrite Masamune if you want. Let's get back here. Let's just understand how this works. We get back to Apollo. We get Masamune to 5, and then we go here for his S style, and we inherit or Lightning Flash or Toxic Gas. And then we will overwrite Masamune, but we will have to keep the skill on 5. At least he can still use it 3 times in a row, but with such a low output damage, does this really justify? It does not double element, it's only E power, he only has 1 passive activated on the start of a turn. Because of Fired Up, the other one needs him to be hit only for boss fights, so the damage will be lacking. You can use it 3 times in a row, but he's just a complemental attacker for farming, not something that you really need. Well, Apollo is like this. I think that he's a good character, but he's not useful everywhere. I still value Creator more than him because of better elemental coverage. He always has 2 elements, he can't spin his sheep AoE, his sheep AoE is better, but Apollo does have a good chance to paralyze, does have a good chance to poison, and that's it about him. He will just sustain a little further in longer challenges or boss fights. Now it's time to talk about Father. Father is a very interesting character. He looks like Indiana Jones. Everyone knows this. And he has a very good status distribution. He got buffed for global. He only has 88 dexterity in JP. Now he has 100, meaning that he's a better damage dealer here. But look, he has also 90% endurance, 71% will. When you look on his status, he kind of reminds me of Mag, but he has something else about him. 81% agility is also pretty nice. Well, he has low intelligence, but it's not like he needs intelligence or STR, and he does have some love and bad charisma, but that's not a problem. We also got his S style to get some inheritance, and his S style is also one of the best ones with 71% dexterity, even higher than some of the launch characters. And for passives, the first one is called Guardian, and Guardian is a cover tank skill. There are not many cover tanks right now in the game. We have Julian with 40% chance of being a cover tank. There is Ren with 25%, and Father has the same as Ren, only 25%. But what is cover? It's a chance for your character to protect one ally and take the damage instead. Because the cover tanks also have damage reduction passives, this means that the damage that you receive is lower and you can save a character from dying, but it still relies on RNG, and in case of Father, only 25% chance of happening. The damage reduction is 35, very high for this, but not that reliable. If you are using buff or debuff strategies, you may not need this at all. Then we have the second one calling Charging Lesson. This is the same passive as Commando Emilia that came from the future. It means that he recovers around 100, 110 HP every new turn, and he also recovers 1 BP when he defeats a target. This is kind of clashing in my opinion because he's not that much of a damage dealer. Now he is because of 100 dexterity, but still some competition for gunners or blunt damage dealers altogether. But you can program him to take advantage of this, it's just that it's not that useful. And then he have Fired Up 5, that means 20% increase in damage at all times. So only 20%, no other way to get status, there's no buff, but he gets BP when he kills a target. He is good for newcomers that still have some problems to survive in some situations, but for veterans, cover tanks right now are not that useful, because there are buff strategies, there are debuff strategies, and evasion strategies that are meta right now. The enemies are kind of easy to cheese with this type of strategy instead of covering with your tank that is not reliable. And now for skills we have Thunder Whip. This is not that good, it's just blunt plus lightning. If you are missing lightning, can help, but it's C damage, 4 BP cost, not that cheap, just okay. and has a chance to stun. He doesn't have that much intelligence, so don't think that he will be stunning many targets. Then there's Submachine Gun, and we already know the skill as well. We can use this with the first version of Fuse and with Rofus. They both use Submachine Gun. It's a very powerful attack because it's C power. Gunners do have high potential because of using the weapon power more than some other weapon types. So Submachine Gun is very powerful. If you are using him with some other gunners, that is something very interesting. You can look on his agility, it's 81%. I think that Rofus and Fuse, if you are using the second Fuse with Inheritance, will attack beforehand. So if he finishes the targets, he can, well, trigger his second passive and get more BP to Submachine Gun even 3 times in a row. But this is hard to program, it depends on many things, and also RNG can screw this up and he will not be able to use this. But still a very good AoE for 2 attacks in the 3-turn cycle. And now if the time has finally come to the last skill, Great Adventure is a very unique skill that only Father has access to, and this is what makes him a little special. Why? Great Adventure has damage, 2 types of element, both blunt and slash, and this kind of reminds me of someone, Summer Ellen. Summer Ellen will do more damage because she has better passive, she gets more status buff by every new turn, but if you're using them for turn 1, it's very nice to have them comboed together. It's 3 hits all the time. Summer Ellen has between 2 to 3, so she will always beat him on 3 hits, but on 2 hits she deals similar damage to Father. And there is one thing here, after attacking, every hit he gets a defense boost stance, and a taunt stance as well for 4 turns. Both things will last for 4 turns. We have to give a look on our SaGa to understand this. They say that it's 15% 3 times, that equals 38 on total. So 38, when he covers someone, he also has 35 more, meaning that the damage is very low when he covers. But still, you have only 25% chance of covering. But a good thing is that he taunts. He will also receive more attacks by being on the front of a Tiger Shark. Taunt will increase this even further. So this is nice, and you can just keep using his normal attack to, well, get back to 10 BP to use Great Adventure again. You can use this every 3 turns if you have Nawal's Daughter or any other buffer that buff 1 BP to the squad. With 9 BP, this is way better than it looks. So now we have to give a look on his ass style to check what we have as inheritance. And there's some interesting stuff. There's Derringer. As you can see, it's C power. It doesn't have the lightning part, but it's cheaper, so you can save VP. Derringer is very strong for a single target, and I already saw this with Mac. Very good potential. Then he has Bound Shot as an old skill, but still does good damage because of the way that gunners do damage in the game, taking more from the weapon than just from the ladder of the damage. And then there is Stun Shot. This has a chance to stun. I don't think that he's a stun specialist. You could try to program him like that, with opening with Stun Shot and then just using the other attack, but I don't think that's so good. So Derringer makes more sense just to save VP. Look, he could open with Stun Shot and use Thunder Whip, but then Thunder Whip is still kinda costly, but you can still do 8-4-4. But AoE, change to single target, I don't know, I don't like this at all. I think that he's either about using Submachine Gun all the time or just using Great Adventure, and sometimes using Derringer if you have BP remaining. Remember, you only have to use the Great Adventure every 4 turns. You can use Derringer just to help out a little here and there. Yes, Derringer. Here. Yes, all the other skills don't look so nice to me. The problem with Father is that you only have this version of him, so he is what he is skippable because of the current meta of the game. But still interesting, one very offensive tank that can do damage just fine. But also brings some problems with not a perfect cycle and skill selection. So now we are back to the banner image, and let me say something here. Is it worth pulling on this banner? It really depends on what you have. Barthelemy is a very strong fire nuker in the game. His only competition is with the first version of Mage Polka. That is also strong. You can use them together if you want. Barthelemy is a meta character. He will be receiving more styles in the future. One that is a mage, and another one that's a pierce damage dealer. But Scatter Explosion is important forever in the game since it's very strong and hard to beat. Only 9 BB for such a damage. Yeah, it's insane. If you already have Mage Polka and you don't have gens, don't worry too much, you can skip this version of Barthelemy, although the STR debuff scene is also very interesting for some boss fight. If you have Doll, you already have something that's good enough, but you can also use both together in some scenarios, because Barthelemy deals more damage. He's a damage dealer with the debuff potential, not so much about Doll. Doll is more about utility and sustain and just dealing damage. Then we have Apollo, and Apollo is someone that has some cycling problems. He's not bad at all. He does not provide the best damage for farming. He does not have any fast attack. He does have a lot of elemental coverage, but not as much as Creator. I don't know if you'll be using Apollo instead of Wagner's for weekly content, like you can use Creator for. Creator is easy to use, and they never run out of BP. Apollo is more defensive. You can probably use him more in scenarios where you have to take some hits, get stronger, or long fights, but he is also skippable in this version of him. And if to follow him in the perfect build of Apollo, you kind of have to search for his future style, and it can take some time. I don't know if Apollo is all that good right now. Creator still is better in my opinion. If you change it, Creator, it's not that interesting to change Apollo as well. But does that make Apollo bad? No, I think that one bad thing is that we got too many future styles that kind of spoiled us a little, and the impact that Apollo has is not as strong as some other styles that came from the future. And it can still be used, it still works, you can still get something out of him. It's just that he does not seem so special to me right now. And then Father is a cover tank in a meta that is not using that many cover tanks. Yeah, I don't use Julian. I can sometimes use Ren, but it's more about the STR debuff than about him taking the hit for everyone, because 25% is not that reliable, and I prefer to use tanks like UDX Madeline that has a 50% chance to evade and also bring something like debuff. That's the same thing with Ren. Bringing multiple roles is usually better for me. Father's second role is a damage dealer, and sometimes it's good to have him as a damage dealer, and then you can well, use other sustain character instead of another damage dealer. Father can provide that. He is made to be used with the Tiger Shark formation, or you can try to use him with the Tiger's Den formation, placing on the front as well. It will work if you have another character that's also an off tank or similar. They will work well together. And I think that the game's kind of sometimes pushing for Tiger's Den formation, so you can decrease incoming damage. Enemies are doing like 700 HP damage with some AoE, so sometimes it's hard. How can you save the squad just with Father? You cannot, so that's why you have to think well about this. But yeah, his AoE damage is interesting. The status buff meant a lot for him, but he still does not provide something that is that incredible. That is my problem. I do see more value out of Barthelemy, STR debuff, and also nuke potential than any of what Apollo and Father can give you. So Barthelemy is the star of this banner for me, and that will not change. Maybe I'll zoom here. I'm thinking too much about this today. I will decide later. But that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope it helps you decide if you want to zoom or not. We'll be going live during the updates, so please stay tuned in and join us for that. Bye.